Hello, everyone. My name is Rotimi Ogunyemi from NBA-SBL Technology Committee. I'd like to say a warm welcome to all of you tuning in for this week's edition of our Business Law Weekly. So indeed, it's a good afternoon, a good morning, and a good evening, depending on wherever you are tuning in from the world. As you will have seen, our topic today is novel. It's decoding blockchain, transforming justice and business law in the digital age. I'm your host today, and I actually am welcoming you on behalf of the chairman and counsel of the section on business law. Today, we will be talking about blockchain. We will be unraveling its profound power in shaping, or I dare say, reshaping our industry. Now, our focus today will transcend the usual discourse around blockchain. Our aim will be to pivot the narrative from that myopic view of blockchain as a mere tool of speculation. And you know what I'm talking about, the cryptocurrencies and the likes. We want to talk about the real thing. We want to talk and have a robust understanding of its technology capability beyond hype, beyond speculation. So we are here to dissect the profound impact of blockchain technology on legal services and the business space and the business environment. So who's better to moderate this conversation than Buki Ogunshaki, also a member of the technology committee of the section on business law. Buki understands the technology, she understands the law, and she understands the linkages. So she's here to help us keep things clear, to direct, and to ensure that we are all engaged. When Buki comes up, she will be introducing our speaker for today, who, by the way, is an industry player. He's not just an expert, but he's a pioneer pushing the boundaries of blockchain as it revolutionizes our industry. So our discussion today is about looking forward, getting real world insights, and maybe even challenging some traditional norms. Again, I promise you it's going to be enlightening and it will be engaging. So I invite you all, please settle in. I think it's a bit of a cold day, so you could grab a cup of coffee perhaps, and let's dive into the conversation. So let's make welcome Buki Ogunshaki as I turn this over to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the introduction. I hope everyone can hear me clearly.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Again, my name is Buki Ogunshaki, and I'm honored today to be your moderator for today's session. I'd like to say a very big thank you to the NBA-SBL committee, the chair, and my chair in the technology committee as well. Thank you so much for bringing this session to us today. I'd like to welcome all of our esteemed attendees to today's session. Like our chair has said, today's topic is decoding blockchain, transforming justice and business law in the digital age. With this session, we aim to, like he said, dive into the impact of blockchain technology on legal frameworks, especially in Nigeria. We'll explore the potential of transforming both business and legal practice because we're lawyers here. and touching on blockchain, how it can enhance transparency and security in our justice system. We're going to be trying to reimagine how business law looks like in the future and navigating this new legal landscape. So definitely at the end of this session, you will have a deeper understanding of this disruptive technology. Um, if you have any questions while the session is going on, please feel free to type in the Q&A box and we'll take them right after our speaker's presentation. I'm excited to introduce our speaker for today. I first met Federico when I joined the 5th batch of the Kleros Decentralized Justice Fellowship. That was in 2022. He is indeed a profound innovator and teacher and inspiration in the blockchain ecosystem. So it's an honor to be having you here today, Federico. I'll just read his introduction quickly. Federico Ast is the founder and CEO of Kleros, which is a pioneering project using blockchain in arbitration. Federico graduated in economics and philosophy from the University of Buenos Aires. He holds a PhD in management from IAE Business School. Federico is passionate about civic innovation and the application of blockchain and artificial intelligence for digital transformation of finance, law, and government. He hosts the Blockchain Disruption and Legal Tech and Digital Transformation of Law courses on the online education platform Coursera. Kleros won the Blockchains for Good award from the European Commission. Federico is an entrepreneur, professor, a lecturer, and a TEDx speaker on innovation, legal tech, digital transformation, blockchain, and new technologies. So I make welcome Federico to the NBA-SBL Business Law Review. So Federico, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bucky, for this great introduction, and Rotimi for hosting all of this event. Let me share my screen. I'm super happy to be here at the NBA. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me slideshow. Okay, well, without further ado, let's jump into business. And let's start by a short introduction to blockchain so everyone is on the same page, okay? So 2008, financial crisis, subprime mortgages, Wall Street is on the brink of collapse. And in that moment, someone publishes in October 2008 a paper proposing a new system of electronic cash made on peer-to-peer basis, what they call Bitcoin. And the name of the publisher is Satoshi Nakamoto, who we don't know who it is. So people try to explain blockchain with a very complex concepts of cryptography, but I have a simpler way to at least have an intuitive way to understand what blockchain is. So blockchain is this technology that is underlying the Bitcoin crypto asset, and it works more or less in this following way. So let's imagine we are in this island of Micronesia. In this island, there was a tribe that is called the Yaps, and the Yaps have a very special monetary system. So instead of having coins and like bills, they have their currency is this stone with a hole in the middle. So these stones were basically what they used for payments. And the problem is that if you wanted to make a payment, this was 4 tons, or 3 tons heavy. So you had to ask for help, for someone to help you to move the coin and make the payment. But of course, that's not very practical, having to be moving around all of these big rocks to make payments. So what they decided at some point is, okay, let's, instead of moving the coins around everywhere, let's just try to leave the coins in one place and then remember who is the owner of each coin. So the problem was then, how do you know who owns each of the stones? And one option they had was to designate one of the members of the tribe to be in charge of remembering who owned each stone. But this, at the end, they just dismissed because it was, what if this person forgets? What if this person gets corrupted? What if this person wants to charge people for telling them who is the owner. So this is why they didn't decide this method. So what they did is something different. They say, okay, each of the members of the tribe now have to remember who is the owner of each stone since the beginning of since the moment where the stone was first carved until the present moment, and including all of the hands through which the coins or the stones went in the way. Okay, so if Alice wanted to make a payment to Bob for some service he made, she gathers all of the tribe in the same place in the central square, and she announces, okay, the stone that is at under the highest palm tree on the beach is transferred from Alice to Bob. And since everyone can see the announcement, they all update their mental ledger to now know that that coin that belonged to Alice now belongs to Bob. And if she wanted to make another payment with that coin, then when she makes the announcement, everyone will say, oh, no, Alice, you cannot do this because you have already transferred the coin, so it doesn't belong to you. So if you replace the brains of these little guys with computers and you replace those stones with bitcoins or crypto assets in general, so this is the underlying logic of a blockchain. So it's a network of computers where everyone has the same exact copy of the ledger, so they have exactly the same information. And if you are using this ledger, you have like a private key that is like your banking account code that you can use to make payments to other people. And a payment is done when your computer announces to the network that it's going to transfer a coin, and then everyone can see this, and then they update the registry, so the payment is done. Okay, so takeaway concept for now is a blockchain is a distributed, shared, and very secure database, right? So it's a database that is owned by the community, not by just one guy. Everyone is like the owner of this public good. So let me tell you another concept that is actually a bit, it was invented before blockchain, but it will converge with the idea of blockchains very soon. That is smart contracts. Smart contracts was a concept developed in the 1990s, in 1995, in a paper by Nick Szabo, where he presented a thesis that went something like this. So we're going through a world of e-commerce, virtual economy, digital transactions, and still the technology for agreements that humans have is still based on ideas of the 15th century. In the end, it's still like the Gutenberg press of contract paper. So what he saw is that we would have at each time a harder time to conciliate this world of technology and virtual commerce that it's coming, and this very old paper technology for making agreements. Okay, so he proposed creating a new technology for agreement that he called smart contracts, and it is a digital technology native to the digital age to register agreements and enforce agreements. So in that paper, he puts an example like this one. So you have Alice and Bob. Alice has a car. She wants to sell this to Bob. So they make a smart contract with a digital agreement for this. And then Bob takes the car and he goes, to vacation, and he pays the first installment. And then after a few months, he stops paying the installments. And what happens is that the car stops working because his key stops working. And the digital key of Alice starts working again, and so she can get her car back. So this idea of smart contracts is about contracts that can self-enforce as they are programmed. So in this case, Alice, she doesn't have to go to a judge. She doesn't have to go to like a lawyer. She just have to have this contract signed as a smart contract to make sure that she will recover her property in due time, right? When the agreement is breached by Bob, then automatically the contract is enforced at near zero cost. Okay, so this is the power of smart contracts. Smart contracts were like an abstract idea, a theoretical idea for almost 20 years until in 2013, 2014, this guy you see on screen, Vitalik Buterin, he starts the project called Ethereum, which is a blockchain similar to the blockchain of Bitcoin in the sense that it's a network of computers that can store assets and make transactions, but it has a programming language which is more sophisticated, and this language can be used to code smart contracts. So anything that you could potentially code in the form if X then Y could potentially be written as a smart contract and published or deployed on the Ethereum network. So typical example is, let's say you have a flight insurance that says if the flight arrives with delay higher than 20 minutes, then the passenger is going to be reimbursed 20% of the value of the ticket. So this is done automatically without the need to go to lawyers, to regulators, to ombudsman. So the smart contract enforces exactly the code as it is written in the computer code, okay? So this is the idea of smart contract. And what if you started to put one smart contract after the other, right? So you had a business logic that works as a way, if X, then Y happens, then Z happens, and then etc. So if you start making this connection of smart contracts in this way, then you can build like a kind of organization that works in an automated way. So that decentralized autonomous organization, it's like a digital bureaucracy that will execute a predefined code in a decentralized network. Okay, so this is an important concept, and now we will see why. Because the key element of the key innovation that is happening today in the application of blockchain into the transformation of the legal industry is in two main elements. One of them, is the use of blockchain to register property in what category that is like real world assets. It's kind of a notarization type of device. And the other way is starting to make new alternative dispute resolution methodologies that can be used in order to solve disputes happening in lots of different situations, okay? And the technology that is being used for this is called decentralized justice. This is the new movement that is being created and deployed at this time. And I will just make an introduction of how this works so you understand how it innovates in the logic that we use for solving disputes, okay? So Kleros, the project I founded, is the pioneer in the field of decentralized justice. It's not the only one, but it's the first one and the one that has developed more and more cases. I will use Kleros for my example because it's what I know best, and well, what has also more traction, but you could make this logic with other projects, okay? So let's see now how this idea of blockchain, smart contracts, and autonomous organizations converge into innovation in the legal industry. So we have Alice and Bob again. So Alice, let's say she's an entrepreneur from France, and she wants to hire Bob to make a video for her company, and Bob is in Guatemala. So they make the contract for digital, for this service. Bob makes the product and she's not happy because she thinks that the quality was not good enough. So there is a dispute. What is she going to do? Is she going to go to court in Guatemala for $500 of the video? No, of course not. Is she going to go to arbitration in Paris or in another arbitration center for a small amount? Of course not. She doesn't have many options in this growing digital economy. As Nick Szabo predicted, more and more contracts are online and global, but the tools we have to solve them are still like local and too expensive, right? So decentralized justice seeks to innovate in this area. So let's see how it works. Imagine Alice and Bob make the agreement, and Alice makes a transfer of payment of crypto assets into an escrow, a smart contract, and they both agree that if there is going to be a dispute in their agreement, this is going to be arbitrated by an arbitrator called Kleros, or this could potentially be another decentralized justice platform, okay? So the money goes to that escrow. If Bob makes a good job and she's happy. All is good. Kleros doesn't get into work. So she gets the video, he gets the money, everybody's happy. But if there is a dispute, this is going to go to the arbitrator platform for resolution. So decentralized justice platforms are DAOs that will pick jurors in a fair way. So these are platforms built on blockchain. And this is very important because the fact that they are built in blockchain means that nobody can tamper with the evidence of the case, nobody can tamper with the way in which the jury is selected, and nobody can tamper with the voting system. So this gives all of the parties that participate in this transaction the capacity to understand, to trust that the system is going to work as intended. And this gives them certainty, which is more or less what law is intending to give businesses that invest in a jurisdiction, right? The certainty of what is going to happen under different scenarios from a legal perspective. So jurors see the evidence, they analyze the case, and they vote, each of them independently, and then they make a decision. And let's say that Alice wins, so they money that was in the escrow, it's transferred back to Alice, and this ends the case. Okay. So the first main feature of decentralized justice is this idea that the system is secured by the blockchain, right? In order to produce certainty and trust in all of the parties involved in the transaction. So one of the questions you might be asking now is, okay, how are the jury selected? I mean, who are these people? And an important feature to understand here is that the jurors are anonymous. Why? Well, because it's important that they can keep their identity safe in order so not to be intimidated by the parties, because they could be victims of harassment campaigns on social media or other campaigns. So it's important that jurors can keep their identity safe. So they don't have to sign up into the platform. They don't need to make an account. Jurors, anyone can be a juror in decentralized justice platforms. So this woman you see here, let's say it's a video producer from Vietnam, and she wants to make some extra money on the side by resolving disputes about video production. And what she needs to be a juror is to buy a token, cryptographic token called Pinakion. The name comes from the ancient token that the Athenians used to select jurors for the popular trials. So this Pinakion, this token, is like a lottery ticket that gives you the right to be selected as a juror in cases, in this case, in particularly in Kleros, okay? So you have the token, you deposit the token into a court. Decentralized justice systems have many courts. Some of them are for marketing, others for English translations, others for video. So in this case, she deposits the token into the video court, and other people who want to be jurors in the video cases, they deposit the token in as well. And Kleros will select, let's say, 5 jurors who are going to analyze the case, see the evidence, and vote on who they think is right, okay? And the token stays locked into the court until the jury makes a decision. And this is going to be important. You will see why. So here you might be asking yourself, okay, if these are anonymous jurors, how do you make sure that they know what they are talking about? And how do you make sure that they not going to be voting randomly like A, B, without looking at the evidence? And here is one of the main innovations that comes from decentralized justice platforms, which is the idea of incentive design based on a field of economics called game theory. Game theory is a field of economics that studies how agents interact with each other and how to develop strategies to accomplish their goals in a scenario where other agents also are optimizing their strategy and trying to get some goals. So this is what is research by game theory. The man you see on screen is Thomas Schelling. He is one of the main game theorists of all time. He's a Nobel Prize of Economics 2005. And he is quite famous for different things, but one of those things is the development of a concept called focal points, which is about how people coordinate to reach a consensus in situations when they cannot meet and they cannot coordinate by communication. Okay, so each of you pick one of these numbers you see on screen. You have 12 numbers. Each of you have to pick one. And if you pick the same as the majority, you get $20. If you pick a different one, then you get zero. So in this case, the vast majority of people will tend to pick 1,000. Any point would be good for coordination, but because of natural reasons, 1,000 seems like the more natural number to pick. So everyone expects the rest to pick 1,000. So that's the Schelling point of the exercise. Now, let's put a number of jurors to analyze a case, the video case, and they vote, and they have to vote like the majority in order to earn money. And if they vote different from the majority, they lose money. And they don't know how others are going to vote. So they don't know what the majority is going to do. So in this case, each of the jurors is incentivized to try to see what is the Schelling point, and what they will tend to do is to pick as Schelling point the truth about the case. The truth, not in a philosophical meaning, but the truth in a consensual way of what the community of practice of video developers believe it's the right decision in this video situation. Okay, so this is how Kleros aligns, the idea of economic incentives with fairness and with finding the truth about the dispute. Okay, so jurors in this scenario will tend to converge on what is the truth about the dispute at hand. So what happens here? Let's say there is a guy who wants to just vote randomly, so not taking any time to see the case. They just vote A, B, A, B. And in this case, sometimes this person might be on the right side of the majority, but on average, this person will tend to be on the wrong side. So this person will put the token and then vote on the case. It will be on the wrong side of the majority. And the token that was deposited in the court, if you are on the wrong side, then you lose it. So this person lose it, and this goes to the jurors who voted on the right side, on the majority. So this guy puts a token, votes randomly, gets on the wrong side, loses the token. Puts another token, votes randomly, gets on the wrong side, loses the token. So and at some point, this person runs out of tokens and then exits the system. What happens on the contrary, a person that actually takes the time to see the case, analyze the evidence, and vote honestly? So at some time, this person might be on the wrong side because it could happen that there is subjectivity, there is interpretation, not always it's easy, cases are not always clear cut, so it can happen. But on average, this person will tend to be more on the majority side than on the minority side. And this means that this person will put a token, will solve the case with the majority. We will earn money as arbitration fee coming from the losing party of the case, and then we'll also receive tokens coming from the non-coherent juror. So this is how the system works to incentivize people to do a good job of analyzing the cases and voting correctly. So two other features of decentralized justice systems is collective intelligence, this idea of people, of peer-to-peer resolution, and this idea of new economic incentives to structure how users interact. Use cases for decentralized justice, and this is very relevant for what's coming in the legal world. Imagine using this type of systems for e-commerce. E-commerce platforms have lots of disputes between buyers and sellers that are resolved through the internal team of the platform or by some alternative dispute resolution system, which needs to be very, very efficient because these are small claims. Think insurance. Dispute between an insurance company and a policy holder over some case happening in some car crash, who should pay for the repair or who shouldn't. Imagine utilities, user against the utilities company, electricity, water, whatever of these companies. So this is also a use case for decentralized justice platforms. Landlord and tenant disputes. So imagine using this for dispute on whether some rental contract was fulfilled or not. There was the first time arbitration done by decentralized justice was actually enforced in a state court, was in Mexico. It was a contract for a landlord and tenant agreement for rental. And there was a rental dispute because the landlord claimed the tenant had not paid. So this went to Cleros. Cleros made a ruling, and the court in Mexico ruled this as a valid arbitration. So that was the first time decentralized justice started to merge with the real world. This is a arbitration clause that was written for that contract, and these are what jurors justified for the decision. So I can share with you this report, which is a very, very famous case now. And then you have like more cases coming from the future, if you want, like esports. You have esport players, like you have disputes in tournaments on gaming, and teams are 20 people in 15 different countries, and they don't really, have any way to solve this in a state court or a traditional arbitration, because everything is very dispersed around the world for cheating cases, for example. So these disputes are in need of some system which is like more native to the digital world, like a decentralized justice. And think of the metaverse, when we spend more and more time in these online immersive scenarios, and the disputes happening there need also a different way to solve, because this adds another layer of complexity, that parties are anonymous. So you don't even know who is the other person you are interacting, because you only know the nickname. So there is no way you could solve this like in a traditional court or arbitration system, right? So, and all of this incentive design of decentralized justice has a reason. So traditional arbitration platforms, online arbitration platforms, they, of course, they are cheaper and faster than having to do a arbitration hearing in person, but they are more like mini trials done over Zoom. So they don't change the logic of how the system works at a fundamental level. So they are like 20, 30% more efficient. But the point is that decentralized justice platforms, they are, because of how they are designed and the incentive system is designed, they are 10x more efficient, and they can solve cases at a cost of, I don't know, maybe $50, and they can solve these cases at 3 or 4 days, which is extremely fast, and they have the transparency of blockchain. So this is why what is going to come in the future is a question of, okay, this is a new technology. Another big technology that is coming to affect the legal world is going to be AI. How are these going to interact in what's to come? So what we think is going to happen in the future is that there's going to be a division of labor between different technologies addressing different use cases. For more objective and simpler use cases, probably this is going to be resolved by AI tools. So because this is more efficient, it's faster, and it's cheaper, it's okay. But there are other cases where AI is not enough, because AI doesn't understand the context, it doesn't understand emotions. So there are a bunch of situations where these tools are really hard to use. And this is the domain where we think that decentralized justice platforms are going to be necessary. And then for more complex cases, which involves higher value, that involves more legal reasoning, legal knowledge, this is still where traditional arbitration or legal procedures are still going to be used. So this is how we imagine the future of dispute resolution. Just 5 more minutes and I finish. We just want to give you a bit of the challenges that this new industry is facing now. Decentralized justice has like 4 main challenges for growing in the future. So one of them is the technical challenge of, will this system be able to actually produce the results that they promise? Can they withstand collusion attempts? Bribery attacks. So these are a bunch of things that a technical perspective. Second is market challenges. What are the use cases where these types of platforms are more likely to be adopted? Which use cases will have more traction This is interesting to understand also your understanding of what of this you see would be interesting to implement in Nigeria. So what problem these platforms that are very cheap and very transparent can help in the Nigerian context. A third challenge is legal. So as you saw, these platforms work with a very different logic of arbitration. So many people ask, well, how this is going to interact with existing legal frameworks, and in particular arbitration frameworks. Is this considered valid arbitration for commercial matters under, let's say, the UNCITRAL rules and the New York Convention? So this is an open question as well. And finally, a bunch of ethical considerations. So this is going to be seen as a fair method for dispute resolution because this works very differently to traditional methodologies, and the people might see this idea of incentives and anonymous jurors as not very compatible with their understanding of how a system should work. Okay, so the challenge in decentralized justice is try to coordinate these four main topics about making systems that are efficient and secure, that resolve real problems in the market, that complies with the regulatory requirements, and also that is perceived as ethical by the community, right? So just to finish, if you want to learn more, a very good way to start is this paper that we published a few months ago, which has all of the research on decentralized justice that we have done at Kleros over the past 6 years already. We have been working on this. So this is a great introduction, an introduction to Kleros and the decentralized justice industry, and also some of the challenges for the future and some of the experiences that were had so far. If you want to get involved, if you are a Telegram user, for example, if you want to become a juror and test this by yourself, you can go to this group and people will help you get your first token, and then how to make the deposit into the court where you want to work. And then, well, they will assist you in all of the process step by step, so you can get fast into the platform. So if you have any other question, people will assist you here also. This is a very friendly community. And then finally, just to finish, so this idea of decentralized justice, it is one of the key new approaches to legal innovation, is made of three main features. So blockchain, as you saw, for transparency and the idea of legal certainty, the idea of collective intelligence and having jurors and peers as the reviewers of the process, and this idea of economic incentives in order to produce the right behavior in jurors, and this will result in having more efficient and more fair dispute resolution systems that will, in the end, try to reach higher justice inclusion for everyone. So thank you very much, and of course I'm open to your questions.
Thank you so much, Federico. That was a very exhaustive session. I'm sure many of us have information overload at this point. So I think we're just going to go right into the questions. We have some questions in the chat box. I have some myself, so let's just take. So the first one says, is Nigeria ripe for this blockchain technology, considering that there are certain factors required for its operation: constant electricity, reliable internet, trained technical manpower, stakeholders buy-in, enabling legal framework? It appears to be a tall order, abstract, and a little far-fetched. So what do you think?
I would say that actually Nigeria is actually a perfect place for this. I am from Argentina originally, and one of the things that we had as problem in Argentina is there was lots of talented people that learned how to, for example, code on the internet. They learned how to do design or stuff like that, and so they were trying to find customers for their work. If you want to, if you're in Nigeria, how do you make customer from US or Germany to hire you? They are not in Nigeria, and they will fear that you will not do the work as you promised. So one of the main motivations for starting Kleros was how can we give this same opportunity to people to work for the world without minding where they are, and that was one of the main ideas when I started. And if you give them a way to solve disputes in these contracts that cannot be solved in traditional settings because either the jurisdiction is different, you are selling a service to someone in another country, or there are too small value for going to arbitration. So this is perfect. How many Nigerian people have like experience and learning about how to do all of kinds of software or design work, and they could find people in customers in other countries. So this is perfect use case for Nigeria. And also internally, think how many, if you want to think of domestic justice inclusion. So governments have been for a long time trying to increase the use of alternative methods of dispute resolution because it unclogs state courts, it's more efficient, and so it's faster. So this you can see as a new way to do ODR, the solution online, which is more efficient than existing technology. So let's say the government wanted to use something like this for like small claims court, or some company wants to use this for resolving the dispute that the company has with the customer. So what happens today in Nigeria if you have, you are the customer of a company and then you have a claim against the company and they don't want to give you your money back? What you have to go to court, I guess. So I imagine that's not a great experience. I guess, imagine it's expensive. I imagine it's slow. I imagine maybe not very transparent in some cases. So imagine instead of going to court, in these cases of small claims, you could go to a system like Kleros. So this is how Kleros is used. For example, in Argentina, there is a cryptocurrency exchange that uses Kleros for solving the claims they have with their customers. They give the customer, instead of having to go to small claims court, they go to a Kleros proceeding and the decision is made by Kleros, which is done in 3 days instead of like 6 months. And it's done at a cost which is almost zero. So I think Nigeria is potentially excellent place for this type of technologies. But of course, as always, the key thing is to understand what is exactly the use case that you want to work on, because Kleros can be used for many different things, but it's about doing the work of understanding where it solves the most important problems. But I'm sure this could be super interesting. And also, there is the fact that Nigeria is a country which is a very big crypto adopter. So there's already lots of crypto communities in Nigeria. I mean, that's how Buki learned about us, because she was researching in the world of crypto, and we have quite some Nigerian members in our community. So I think maybe of all the countries in Africa, maybe Nigeria could be one of the first one to adopt this at scale.
I agree. And I wanted to address the far-fetched aspect as well. Just like you mentioned, we have a lot of Nigerians in the decentralized Web3 space. So it's no longer far-fetched. Many Nigerians are actually using this technology. So the next question, Ijom, I think I'm going to bunch the question from Ijoma Odobia and Abiodun Adeyoju together. It says, being a juror, is it open to any profession? That's one. And secondly, how does the Kleros system detect a situation where majority of the jurors voted wrongly, since decision is based on majority votes?
Okay, so the jurors are open to any profession. So different courts in Kleros have different specialities. So for some courts, you have to learn to know about like programming in JavaScript. For others, you need to know about design. For others, you need to know. Each court says to people who could potentially become jurors what is the type of skills that they need in order to become jurors in that court. So, but yes, any profession is okay, and you don't need to be a lawyer, because as you saw, many of the cases that Cleros solves are not legal cases. The case we saw about the contract of the video, I mean, you don't need to be a lawyer to understand, how the video is done. So you need to be a video producer more than a lawyer. So yeah, any profession, each court has a different type of skill set required to join. So how does the Cleros system detect a situation where majority of jurors voted wrongly? So this is what happens. In my presentation, I only made a very short version of Cleros, so because it will take too much time. But now that you ask, I can explain a bit more. So you have an appeal system. So let's say you have this dispute done with about the video, and you had 3 jurors in the case. Let's say Alice thinks that Bob bribed the jurors, or the jurors were mistaken. So he can appeal. She can appeal to the case, and then what happens is another panel of jurors is going to be drawn, and it's going to have twice as many jurors plus 1. So it goes from 3 to 7. And the 7 jurors are now going to analyze the case and then make a new ruling. And also there could be another appeal, and this will bring it to 15, and then to 31, and then to 63, until 511, which is the last court. So what does this mean? So if you want to, for example, bribe jurors to win, so you can bribe easily like 2 out of 3, maybe 4 out of 7. It's harder to bribe 8 out of 15, so it's making it more and more, difficult for people who want to attack the system to have as much money to bribe the people they need to win. So that's one thing. And also what is happening is that as you start drawing higher panels, then you have a wider sample of the total population of jurors, of videos in this case. So if you have a wider sample of the total population, because you have like 500 jurors now, then you have like a good understanding of what is the feeling, or what is the opinion of this big community, of the average person of this video producing community understand about the case. So if you make a survey of 500 people in like this way, then you know quite well what the community thinks about the case. But the magic of Cleros is that you can have like a way to have this understanding without having to ask 500 people, because that would be very expensive. And this is how the game theory works, and the magic of the game theory. If you are a juror in the first round and you have 2 other jurors, your incentive is not to try to coordinate with the other 2 jurors. You need to be in the majority of what would potentially happen if the case were appealed up to the last stage. So you have to think, how would the Supreme Court think of this case if they were to decide? Because that could happen if there is an appeal. So this brings the best of both worlds. You have a good a decision which is done cheaply because it's done by 3 jurors, but they still are thinking of how would the Supreme Court, if you want, would think. So this is a bit like the magic of Cleros, and this is what we work to every day to improve the system. And this is a team of mathematicians, but this is a bit like the logic of how it works. Hopefully that was clear enough.
Very good. So if I can just summarize that, so far we've learned that there's what we call the decentralized justice system. Cleros is an example of that decentralized justice system. The same way we have the hierarchy of the courts in the traditional system, Cleros also has that system where you have, if you're not satisfied with the decision of a court, you can appeal and go to a higher level. And just like he's saying, the system is designed in such a way that it makes it more difficult as you go higher to game the system. Okay, so that's basically what the explanation is. A lot more questions are coming in. Federico, before we take the next question, I wanted you to go into how this has been accepted in Europe, because most of the lawyers here will be looking at it from the Nigerian perspective. We have our traditional system. How is it going to work with, this decentralized system? So if you can give us an example of how the courts in Europe are accepting this and what the status of that is, you can just touch on that briefly before we take the next one.
Yeah, so the main success case of Kleros being accepted in a traditional court was done in Mexico. So as I mentioned, there was this case in 2020 that there was a contract of leasing contract for a building, for an apartment, and then the contract had an arbitration clause that said in case of dispute, go to Kleros. So there was a dispute, this was loaded into Kleros jurors made a decision, and this was taken to a judge, and they asked the judge for enforcement, and the judge saw, okay, this is a contract which has an arbitration clause. The clause asks the dispute to be solved in this way. The dispute was solved in the required way by the clause, so there's nothing that should be an obstacle to enforce this in court, because it's like a traditional arbitration agreement. So that is how this was enforced in the case of Mexico. 2 months ago, Mexico has passed a law in the Congress where they accept decentralized justice systems as legally valid in Mexico. So this is going to bring lots of new experience, because this is going to be start using massively in contracts in Mexico, and this we expect is going to start to spill to other jurisdictions, including Europe or hopefully Nigeria. But now, since last month, decentralized justice is a valid method for dispute resolution, for arbitration under the Mexican law. So, I mean, I would love to work with some of you if you want to understand what would be the obstacles to implement this same type of logic into a Nigerian court. It's not Nigeria is conservative. The legal world is conservative everywhere. So it's about so you're no different from anyone else in other countries in that sense. So if you want to work with us in innovating this type of research on how we could build clauses or decentralized justice clauses which are binding under the Nigerian context, I mean, you can contact me, no problem, and we can discuss, because that's something of very much interest to us.
Okay, thank you so much. We are almost, I think we have just about 2 minutes to wrap up. There's still more questions here, but I think I'm going to take, okay, we've answered that appeals are hierarchical. The jurors, let's see, this is quite long. Secondly, deposit of the contract sum or a predetermined penalty sum for breach in a crypto escrow wallet or account is essential. Does that mean in every contract, parties must make a deposit for future breach? Will this not be against public policy and unconscionable contract? Will each jurisdiction not design legal frameworks to address these issues before adopting and deploying decentralized justice? I think you have about 30 seconds to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, just not necessarily. You don't need to use the escrow wallet in every case. In some cases where you need to do the enforcement through smart contracts, typically, yes. That is the case of the production video of two people in different countries, because have an enforcement of a ruling done in a different country requires it's very hard. So you have to go into, if you don't want to go through the escrow route, you have to go to the, New York Convention enforcement. So it's hard. So, but for example, in other cases, like the Mexico case I mentioned, there was no deposit. There was a ruling made by the platform, and it was accepted by a judge. So the enforcement was done by a judge without any escrow requirements. Just so no need for the escrow wallet in many cases, and in many cases, people don't even need to be aware that there is blockchain, because parties, they don't need to use crypto. The only people who use the cryptocurrency and that interact with Kleros directly are the jurors. The other people, they just get a service, but they don't have to interact directly with the platform. So that removes lots of friction from the work.
Okay, someone is asking if this could be applied on the blockchain for criminal justice.
That's not our main focus, I'd say. I mean, it's hard to see what would happen in the long-term future, but at this point, I mean, we wouldn't feel, I think, very much comfortable with Kleros or decentralized justice to be used in a criminal justice, setting. Some people think they could use this, but you have to remember that decentralized justice is quite new. It's quite experimental. For now, the most advanced platform is Kleros, which has solved 1,600 cases. I think that there's much more research and experience to be done before we can think of using them Kleros or decentralized justice for like criminal justice.
Yeah, so mostly it's still civil, small claims, insurance, utility, just like the examples that Federico gave earlier on. Someone is asking how you can join. I believe the slides will be sent to us, so the details will be there to join maybe Telegram groups or communities for us. Someone is asking how the system is set up. Okay, we've answered that. Is there an end to appeals where a party is dissatisfied with the decisions? As we've answered, are appeals hierarchical, and where does it terminate? I think that will be the final question for today.
Yeah, there is a final court, and it's like the Supreme Court with when it reaches 511 jurors. That's what that final court decides. It's the final decision, and there's no appeal.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. We have about 3 minutes before it's 2 p.m. Thank you so much, Federico. I think I'm just going to hand it back to Rotimi, our chair, to wrap up for today. Thank you so much again, Federico, for such an insightful session. If you have any other questions, please contact Kleros. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to give you some more education and awareness on decentralized justice and other systems. So thank you so much again for having me today as your moderator. Over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Buki. Thank you, Federico. I promised everyone that this was going to be enlightening and this was going to be engaging, and indeed it was. And besides, I said it was going to challenge our traditional notions of dispute resolution. So I believe that's exactly what has happened. Now, in wrapping up, I would say this. What Federico has done is to show us one use case of blockchain, just one. And when you hear jurors and all, think about a panel of arbitrators, right? And there's just no end to blockchain's application. So what's my closing short to lawyers on the call? I would say one, continuous learning. Please, the field of blockchain is evolving rapidly. I would encourage each of us to commit to ongoing education in this area. I love the work that the NBA-SBL is doing in this regard. I mean, there was this series on mastering blockchain. For those of you who perhaps want a bit more granular details, I did something on a masterclass of blockchain. I believe the link will be in the chat soon. Also please read. One of the most recent work in this space is by Chris Dixon, Read, Write, Own, about the blockchain. You can get that on Amazon Read. Folks, let's network, connect with experts in this field. I mean, there are folks like Buki and there are many more, right? There's a whole lot. You are legal advisors, you speak to your clients, begin to educate your clients about the opportunities and pitfalls of blockchain, right? Let's begin to have these conversations. And like you can tell, there's the policy advocacy as well. Much of the the work that needs to be done has to happen in the policy space. Let's continue to engage policymakers. Let's continue to contribute in policy discussions, because at the end of the day, we all are interested in access to justice. We want to decentralize. We want to decongest the courts. These are solutions. And finally, for seasoned technology attorneys on the call, please consider mentoring younger lawyers who are keen in perhaps specializing in this area of practice. There's a whole lot. And then look at your law firms. Like Federico said, evaluate how blockchain technology can be applied within your firm. It may not be within the dispute resolution space. It may be, how do you deploy smart contracts? How do you secure transactions? How do you ensure data privacy? How do you add value to your clients leveraging blockchain? I said lastly, but Federico touched on this. This is the age of exponential technologies. You are going to begin to see intersections between blockchain and AI. Many of the issues that we see with AI, blockchain is positioned to solve them because it's community leaning, right? So there's a whole lot to say, but I just thought to bring it all together to say beyond arbitration, beyond clearance, there's a whole lot to know, there's a whole lot to do in this space. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. I have learned a whole lot more than, I used to know, and I'm very glad. We are right on the dot of the hour. I know that the chairman of the section on business law is on the call. I wouldn't know if, Doctor, you would want to give us a parting shot. Thank you very much. All right. On behalf of the chair and council, I say thank you, everyone. For those who want to reach out, please do. The technology committee of the section on business law will be a hub of sorts to ensure that we can keep these conversations going. Federico had displayed, and perhaps you might want to display once again the QR code on the screen, Federico, for those who might want to take this further in that space. But from here, I say thank you so much and have a fantastic rest of the day and a fantastic rest of the evening. Buki, well done. You were phenomenal. Thank you so much. Right. So if the QR code can come back up, I think, yeah.
I will just send me an email. I put my email here on the chat, so I already closed the QR code document, but you can send me an email there and all good.
Fantastic. That works. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.